Hello friends, welcome back to another video. I'm alive and living, as you can see. Health situation hasn't really changed much since the last video that I filmed, except for that the current pneumothorax seems to be healed or mostly healed, and I'm able to sit. So I'm sitting. I'm going to sit. This is my sitting pose. I'm going to sit, and I'm going to film a normal video. Normal as I can possibly achieve in my current circumstances. My dudes, first things first, we gotta talk about Sappho. She was the first, the original, just the lesbian icon. So much so that the word lesbian came to mean lesbian. Because you see, Sappho was from Lesbos, the island in Greece. She was born in the 7th century BC, that's 2,600 years ago, in the village of Erissos on Lesbos. For most of history, lesbian just meant a person from the island of Lesbos, and it still does. Inhabitants of the island are called lesbians. It just so happens that one lesbian, 2,000 years ago, was so extremely gay for women that the word lesbian also was co-opted to mean being extremely gay for women. Sappho's love poetry about women has informed queer women's identities for literally thousands of years. I feel like I've been talking a lot recently about queer symbolism, queer women's symbols, the lesbian flag. The color violet comes up a lot and how that originated from the references to violets in Sappho's poetry. Sappho's work comes to us now primarily in a written form, so it can be easy to forget that she was technically a musician and a lyric poet, which just means that her poetry was meant to be sung. She wouldn't have been like writing her poetry down at the time. It's not even technically known if she was literate. However, eventually her life's work was compiled into 9 books, and by books, in this era, we're talking about papyrus scrolls. Her work was preserved in 9 scrolls, however only 1 survives intact to this day. The rest are in fragments. I recently read If Not Winter, which is the fragments of Sappho's work translated by Anne Carson, which is very cool. I would say that she knows a thing or two about how to treat this text. She does a really amazing job with it. I enjoyed the book a lot, and it's a pretty easy read. I recommend it. It does have a visual element, so I would say it's a book that needs to be physically read. However, it's not a terrible segue into today's sponsor, Audible. I personally really love Audible. I think it's a great thing to have to fit the books that you love, your interests, your wellness into a chaotic schedule, or just to keep your brain entertained while you're doing mundane chores or commuting somewhere or something like that. I've been moving, so doing a lot of packing. I've been bedridden with a pneumothorax. I've been doing a lot of things lately. The audiobooks have really helped get me through. I listened to the entirety of Autobiography of Red, which is another of Anne Carson's books. To be fair, it's only like a couple of hours, but I listened to all of it in one go. You can get Autobiography of Red, or if you're not into poetry and gay angst and things, I don't know. If you're not cool, you can get something else. You can get literally any book you want for free when you sign up to Audible, and then you'll continue to get 1 free audiobook per month, and those books will be yours to keep forever, even if you end up canceling your Audible membership down the line. All Audible members have access to the growing Plus catalog filled with thousands of select audiobooks, podcasts, guided fitness and meditation programs, sleep tracks for better rest, and more, all included within the membership. No matter what it is that you're interested in, Audible is going to have something for you. So head on over to audible.com/strangeeons or text strangeeons to 500-500 to start your 30-day free trial, get 1 free audiobook, and browse the Plus catalog. Right, so the word lesbian originally referred to residents of the island of Lesbos in Greece. Now it means being gay for women because of Sappho. Great, now you know that. It's a real fun fact. Now I gotta tell you about something way weirder. So in 2008, a case was brought in front of a court in Athens by some residents of the island of Lesbos attempting to ban the word lesbian in reference to gay women. And by residents of the island of Lesbos, I mean a whole 3 of them. This guy named Dimitris Lambro, who was the editor of a right-wing magazine, plus 2 of his colleagues. It sounds pretty nonsensical, right? What is starting a court case like that even supposed to achieve? Like, technically it was against this one Greek gay rights group that used the word lesbian in its name. Even if they somehow succeeded in forcing that group to change their name, even if they managed to extend that to getting it banned in Greece, like what were they supposed to do about the rest of the world, you know? Like, it wasn't really about like truly taking the word back or changing things. It was about posturing about how the dirty homosexuals are destroying conservative values and trying to start a whole stink in the media. That's what this court case was really about. Lambro was trying to sell this idea that he and other residents of the island of Lesbos were being deeply disgraced and disrespected by this association of lesbian and lesbian. We are very upset that worldwide women who like women have appropriated the name of our island. Until 1924, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, a lesbian was a native of our isle. Now, because of its connotations, our womenfolk are unable to call themselves such, and it is wrong.
Όχι, δεν θέλω το όνομά μου να λέει και άλλα πράγματα. Θα λέει αυτό που είμαι, λέσβιος.
According to another article, a Lesbos resident who supported the case said, "Gay women have every right to define themselves as they wish, but they don't have the right to appropriate our national identity. Of course, the homosexuals have every right to express themselves how they would like, except how they're doing it right now." Supporters showed up with banners bearing slogans like, "If you're not from Lesbos, you are not a lesbian."
My name is Paul and I'm a lesbian. I'm lesbian. Yes, lesbians marry the opposite sex.
From what I've researched, it seems like on the whole, being queer in Greece right now could be better. Public opinion and legal protections for gay people have improved drastically over the past decade. The internet tells me that it's pretty safe and on an upward progressive trend. Cool. But we're talking about 2008. This court case happened in 2008. Things were worse. The Greek Orthodox Church and the conservative government were often hostile towards gay rights, not to mention right-wing groups such as the magazine that the perpetrators of this case worked for. However, even in 2008, when things were worse, public opinion was mostly that this case was dumb and the only reason for it was thinly veiled homophobia. That no one's identity was being stolen or disrespected in this dramatic manner, that the word simply had two meanings which could easily coexist and be clarified. They're technically not even exactly the same word. In Greek they're differentiated by pronunciation, although technically the spelling is still the same, so there can be some gray area there.
A lesbia is a woman from Lesbos. A lesbia is a homosexual woman. But when the word becomes an adjective to describe, say, an organisation or an institution, that's when things get a little confusing.
Which lesbians are catered for at the Lesbian Hotel, use lesbian traditional products, and frequent the lesbian meat market.
But still, there wasn't really any local support on the island of Lesbos for the case. The mayor of Lesbos even publicly denounced it. Yeah, apparently the island of Lesbos has a mayor. I mean, I don't know what I expected the leader of the local government of a Greek island to be called, but there's the mayor. I don't know, something tickles me about the mayor of Lesbos, the lesbian mayor. It's funny, it's just, this is exactly what Dimitris Lambro is pissed about, isn't it? The defense called up residents of Lesbos to testify to not only the harmlessness of the association between these two words, but actually the benefit to the island because of the insane amount of tourism that they get from the gay variety of lesbians. Two of those defense witnesses are quoted saying, "Let's stop playing around with words. Protests like this are nothing but prejudiced. The term can be used by both sides without insulting anyone." And the term has been used worldwide for centuries. It's not actually true, but we can give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that they mean decades or even 1 century, and has even helped the island boosting tourism. My daughter has no problem being called a lesbian, even though she's not a lesbian. And the court ruled in favor of the lesbians. The gay ones. Sorry, right-wing weirdos, the Athenian court says we're all lesbians now. And that is what I planned to make a video about. I wanted to talk about that court case because I'm just tickled by it. However, we need to talk about lesbian tourism to Lesbos because it's estimated that 90% of tourism to the island is from queer women. And they are specifically going to Erissos, the birthplace of Sappho. And Erissos is a pretty small village. In 2018, it was estimated that 3,000 to 4,000 queer women visited in comparison to the only 1,500 permanent residents. There's apparently a few Sappho and lesbian themed businesses around, but for the most part, it's a pretty quiet place. According to a 2008 interview with the 2 lesbian bar owners in Erissos, I've read a lot of articles now written mostly between 2008 and 2019, and the number of lesbian bars in Erissos tends to fluctuate between 2 and a whole 3. But in 2008, there was 2 lesbian bars, and the respective owners both said that tourists and locals tended to coexist peacefully, that the gay lesbians were there to experience holiday partying and romance like any straight tourists and rarely got out of hand. Equally, they didn't have to worry about experience any homophobia or backlash to their presence there from the locals because their presence was viewed as so economically beneficial. But interestingly, this wasn't always the case. Lesbian tourism to Lesbos has been recorded going back to the 70s, and throughout the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s, lesbian relations were bad. The idea of running away to an isolated lesbian island appealed to a lot of lesbian feminist separatists at the time. This is another topic I could probably make a whole video about, but essentially, they believed that because patriarchy and misogyny permeated literally every aspect of our society, the best course of action was to simply throw the whole society away and live in separate all-lesbian communities. They had some pretty good ideas about women's autonomy and sustainable living, but in practice their communities tended to be extremely conformist and hostile towards anyone who didn't fit a particular mold, and they ultimately died out as a lesbian subculture, but some of their ideas are survived by, you guessed it, the TERFs. The lesbian separatists who gravitated toward Lesbos were not, in fact, paying into the tourism industry or benefiting the island. They were setting up their own camps, trying to start their own lesbian societies, essentially. Apparently, they were extremely hostile towards the local men of Lesbos, and the men who tended to be kind of old-fashioned and misogynist were equally hateful towards the lesbians. Visible relationships between women, affection between women in public was absolutely not tolerated in that day. Physical fights between the local men and the queer women who were arriving there were common. Even sexual assaults were common, according to one woman who lived there at the time. Things began to improve throughout the 90s, but there was another notable hiccup in lesbian relations in 2000, and it was apparently chronicled in a now lost to history documentary entitled Lesbians Go Mad on Lesbos. Oh Lord, I need you to send yourself back to just the horrendous vibes of 2000s reality TV. Just go to that mental space for a second while I describe this documentary to you from the fragments and the descriptions that I can find online. Over 20 lesbians from the UK planned this vacation where they were gonna go to Lesbos and just go crazy and have this giant lesbian orgy party and make like a trashy reality TV documentary about it. Because of the publicity around it, they end up facing a lot of backlash from the islanders. The mayor of Lesbos tries to ban them from entering the island. It's a whole massive shit show, and I want to watch it so bad, but I know like it's like a gimme sugar situation. It's not anywhere on the internet. I have to wait for some insane person to like send me a tape of it from their basement. If someone could find me gimme sugar, it might be possible. I think this one's gonna be even harder to find than gimme sugar, but I don't want to lose faith yet. I want to see lesbians go mad on Lesbos. Anyway, regarding the documentary and everything that happened around it, a woman working in one of the lesbian bars on Erissos said, "Some of the women were like men. They were shouting things to women that few men would dare, such as lovely tits." She was disgusted by the fact that the lesbians involved brought their own stripper to the island. Oh, 2000s reality TV. Why were you like that? She said, "We would not tolerate local men doing such things, so why would we put up with lesbians behaving like pigs?" So what eventually changed? Because the same woman who described this rampant homophobia, physical altercations, and sexual assaults going on in the 90s also said in 2008, "When I first lived here, I felt like a third-class citizen, a woman, a foreigner, and a lesbian. But now I feel accepted and equal." Somehow over the decades, lesbians managed to become this normal and accepted part of the community in Erissos. There's even a good number of lesbians who moved there and became permanent residents, mainly from mainland Greece, Germany, and England, who set up their lives and businesses there and truly became a part of the local community. So at some point between 2000 and 2008, the acceptance of lesbians, the gay ones, increased drastically. And it's widely thought that this is simply because the locals saw the economic benefit of all of this tourism. After all, the benefits of tourism was a huge argument in the 2008 court case. Gay lesbians became more respectful of the islanders and created this huge boom in tourism. The islanders became less hostile to visible queer relationships because of that economic benefit to them. But it does sound a little cold when you put it that way, doesn't it? And I don't think that's how it is in reality, just from everything that I've read. In 2008, the mayor of Lesbos came to the opening of the annual Women's Festival there. And the organizer of the festival is quoted saying, "He was the only man surrounded by hundreds of lesbians, some with loads of piercings, tattoos, kissing each other. But the mayor took it in stride and made us realize that the locals have become educated about gay issues simply by living among lesbians." Like, what is this? Some kind of feel-good Disney movie? Everyone comes together in the end to dunk on the weird right-wing weirdos court case? Throughout the 2000s, Lesbos is described as this absolute paradise for queer women where they could find community and acceptance long before they could in a lot of their home countries. One woman said, "In Erissos, it was okay to be a lesbian, to hold hands with your girlfriend, long before it was in England."
The only place where I feel like I'm really a normal human being, you know, and everybody's lesbian here. I don't have to care or to think about maybe she's straight or not, like
there's somebody watching or somebody.
Yeah, or somebody's watching, or I don't know, or the police is coming or something like that. This is why I'm here.
Like, when you think about it, like, things are really good now. Like, for me, where I live in Canada, things are really good now. But in 2008, you probably would feel a little self-conscious walking down the street holding hands with your girlfriend. A place where that was just completely normal would have been so unique and interesting. And that is what Erissos was to a lot of lesbians in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, even into the early 2010s, before it was quite as easy as it is here now. Every year, the biggest boom in tourism to Lesbos is the Women's Festival, held every September, also referred to as the Sappho Festival or simply Sappho. An article written in 2019, which recounts the writer's time at the festival, paints a picture of this idyllic queer paradise. She talks about the catharsis of being surrounded by people like her when she's accustomed to being a minority, about being in a space that is body positive, filled with fascinating, worldly, hot older women to talk to, transcendent music and island vibes, and it's kind of like this big polyamorous orgy, but also there's no drama because everyone's on vacation. Like, what is this? Queer women were everywhere, and for those 2 weeks, it just felt normal, usual. Finally, I wasn't the only lesbian in the restaurant, or 1 in 3 in the office. Everyone was like me. At Sappho, the couple cradling in the sea is queer. The people checking you out are lesbians. The person inviting you around for a sunset cocktail is gay as the day is long, as are the women painting by the harbor. And maybe that all sounds, you know, maybe it's a little bit too good to be true. I mean, I'm looking at the festival website right now, and I don't really... We're going to Lesbos! Another writer who attended the festival in recent years specifically mentions how she always felt out of place in these kind of male-dominated gay bars in America, which is just so... Yeah, that's really how it is, huh? The full normalization and just overwhelming visibility of queer women in Erissos has been such an important and healing experience for so many women who have gone there, and I think that must be because we've experienced this almost complete disappearance of physical spaces for queer women to gather and form communities. And yes, we have this trade-off where there's kind of the internet for that, where you can go and you can see that people like you exist out there, but like, it's not really the same. I think I would also feel just overwhelmed in this amazing way if I were to go to an island just filled with queer women. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I've been in a room just filled with queer people. Like, I'm reading this woman's article and she's talking about how she feels deeply connected to Lesbos and to Sappho as a half-Greek woman and as a lesbian and as a writer, and I'm just like... Kill Bill sirens. All of those things are me. I am also those things. Should I just move to Lesbos right now? Is this who I am? This video has just led me down so many rabbit holes. I don't even know anymore, man. Where am I? What's going on? Lesbos is a place that has always been important to queer women because of Sappho, but now in recent years it's become important in an all new way because of this crisis of physical spaces that we're facing. A lot of us have nowhere to go to be surrounded by queer women in our own countries, but at the same time there's been this decade-spanning clash between the identity of the local lesbians and the lesbian tourists, and I can't just go and speak to the average person from Lesbos to verify their side of the story 100%, but I want to tentatively say, from everything I've read, that it seems like both types of lesbians have learned some important lessons about respecting each other and have achieved this at times weird and funny and interesting coexistence, and I really just want to go to Lesbos now. And that's it. That's the video. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. I have a Patreon Discord server where I do live streams every single Wednesday. You can ask me questions, send me dumb memes. Sometimes we play Jackbox games or Cards Against Humanity online. Link to that in the description below if you want to check it out. And I'll see you soon.